Good morning, everybody. Just checking my settings. Yeah, everything is excellent. Okay. So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this career Puccino. I've just sent out for coffee because I've gone from one meeting to the next. So I've got water for the minute, but my coffee is on its way, I am assured. Today we're going to talk about writing like a pro. I've put postdoc pro in there. This is a subject that people find really, really difficult. If I could wave my magic postdoc agony aunt wand, it would be to fix people's writing issues. I'm not sure why this is such a challenge for people. But it is. The challenge is real. The struggle is real. And people either can't find time for writing, don't know how to get started, get stuck, think that they have to sound super, super clever on their writing, all sorts of things. So what I would encourage you to do is we're going to go through 20 minutes, just some thoughts about writing. And even if that gets you to that tiny, tiny, eye-wateringly easy goal of writing for 5 minutes today, then my job is done. Okay, writing does need to be a habit. And if you can build that habit slowly, slowly, and grow, then you're on to a winner. We are going to use, brilliant, my coffee has now arrived. We are going to use a little book today, which is by Steven Pressfield, and it's called Nobody Wants to Read Your Rude Work. And the reason that I'm going to use this book is that it's really quite an interesting take on writing. It's a lovely book. The chapters are really short. It's part autobiographical, part tips and tricks. And although he has built his career in marketing and screenwriting and writing novels and then writing non-fiction, there is a lot that he has put in this that I think is really super relevant to researchers. So let's dive in, shall we? There we are. So I want you to think about, what if your research was a movie? And very much Steven Pressfield and lots of other people who talk about academic writing tell us we have to tell a story. There has to be a story part to that. There has to be, we need to know where our characters start. Where did the research start? We need to know the middle. What are you doing now? We need to know the end. What's the point of all this? Where are we going with this research? But the other thing that movies have is that they make us care one way or the other. Either we cry our eyes out at a sad romance, or we're on the edge of our seat on an action thriller, but they make us care. They make us pay attention. You need to put in that passion and that drive. And why do you get up in the morning and do your research? That's what we need to know. And so what if your research was a movie? I think is quite a good question and probably quite a refreshing one for a Monday morning. Okay. So my first thought is, what's the genre? So we're going to go through with this movie theme, bear with me. What's the genre? What are you writing? Are you writing a paper for a scientific publication? Are you writing a chapter for inclusion in a book? Are you writing a review article? All of those have very different flavours, different genres, different ways of writing. Why do they have those? Because they have different audiences. And even if they had the same audience, the audience is coming to that with different expectations. So you don't rock up to a Bruce Willis film and imagine, kind of that you're going to get a beautiful, very slow paced romance. You're going to get action. It's a Bruce Willis film. That's what happens. So thinking about what is my audience expecting? Am I writing in the right way for that audience? Review article is a great example of this. So when I was a PhD student a long time ago, I can remember reading some review articles that really were fantastic. They laid it all out straight. They were perfect for someone starting out in the field. That was me as a PhD student. So thinking about what is the genre that you're writing for. What's the theme? Now this comes back to, we've got this beautiful blurred image, and then we've really honed in with our movie maker's camera. We've really honed in on this crisp, absolutely focused picture. Rather beautiful picture. Focus, focus, focus. Your writing needs to have a theme. What are you going to come back to time and time again that is the point of what you're writing? People need signposting, but it also helps you keep on track. This book's called This for a reason. People don't have time to read stuff that isn't relevant to them in that particular moment. So if you're writing a review article, chances are they're not expecting a deep discussion of some very technical piece of, methodology. They're looking for a general spread. X did this, Y did this, X and Y linked together in this way. That's what they're looking for. They're not looking for necessarily the minutiae. They can go to X's paper for that or Y's paper for that. Thinking about your theme and coming back to it time and time again. This is particularly pertinent in a thesis. Some of you might have already written your thesis. But think about coming back to what is the point? What is the key question that I'm trying to answer? Your movie or your piece of writing needs a theme. And if it's a longer piece of writing that you are going to come back to, then I would put your theme on a post-it and stick it up somewhere large. If it doesn't fit on a post-it, it's probably not very clearly articulated. And that might be the first writer's block that you have. So if you're trying to write something and it feels like you're going through mud, chances are you haven't got clarity on that theme. What is my central point here that I am trying to get across? I like this one because these people have light bulb heads because they're ideas people, they're researchers just like you. And to some extent, you are the hero in this. You have done the research, you have worked through the ideas, you've generated a hypothesis, you've worked through the experiments, or you've interviewed people, or whatever it might be that your research consists of, and you've got something that you want to share with the rest of us. So you and your research group are the hero here. You are the people championing this theme, this cause. So don't forget that. We might need to know a little bit more about you. Certainly in grants and fellowships, this is where quite often I see the missing piece is, I don't know who's doing this research and why should I give you this money as opposed to a group over there or that person over there for their fellowship, because they told me exactly why they deserve it as opposed to how important the project is. So quite often in grants and fellowships, we need to write about ourselves, but also in your average paper, we do need to perhaps outline how things were done, who did what, and to make sure that we've got all that lined up. This comes back to thoughts of authorship as well. Who is on that authorship list? Why are they there? What have they contributed? Thinking about that early doors before you've even put pen to paper can be a really important thing. So making sure that you've sort of thought about the hero, that is you and the other people in your research team. Who is the villain? So creepy face here. That's a bit scary, but I typed in villain and this is what came up. In your writing, we need to know, if we're going to take the story idea forward and the movie concept forward, we need to know what we're battling against. What is it that you are trying to discover? What is it that you are trying to cure if you're in medical research? What is it that you're trying to achieve technically? What barrier are you trying to break? Is it computing speed? Is it delivery in a chemical process? You know, are you trying to get things so much more efficient? The villain here is really important. It comes back to having that theme, that point. What are we trying to do? What is the villain here? Now, if you're in a cure for cancer type race, the villain is cancer, but that is quite a big villain. Can we break that down into what are you specifically trying to tackle as well? So there might be, you know, there's the big bad, but there might be smaller bads as well that you want to address. But making sure that you come back to that key theme. So your theme will be, we are doing this, but what's missing is the why, okay? And that's where the villain comes in. We have to know what we're trying to fight against. Otherwise, what would be the point? Research is hard enough as it is. So even if it's blue sky research and we're trying to push forward the barriers of knowledge, then the villain is the unknown. But we need to articulate that helps us convey our passion. It helps us explain why this is important. And the other concept is linked to Jeopardy. Now, apologies for this poor tortoise upside down. This is what, if you ask my 14-year-old son, this is what Jeopardy looks like. And actually, he's probably spot on. So here, slightly different to the villain, the Jeopardy is what happens if we don't bother? What happens if we don't rush in as the hero and kill the villain? If we don't do this particular piece of research endeavour, what happens? What's the opportunities that we've lost? How many people might die? Depending on your research, there will be different sort of levels of jeopardy. But without that kind of, sort of sitting on the edge of our seat type stuff, we're not going to get vested. This is where you can lay in the passion that you have, the drive that you have. You will have a drive for your research because you want to know, you want to cure people. You know that if you don't happen to do this really quickly, then X people might die. X thousand people might die. X million people. Who knows? So there is a timeliness associated in this as well, which if we bring back to the movie, sort of Jeopardy in the future doesn't work. We have to have Jeopardy now because we're sat watching this. We can't really think about the future because actually what we're watching is something unfolding in front of us. So that Jeopardy has to be there. It has to be tied up to what happens if I don't fund this research. If we're looking at a fellowship or a grant application, what happens if? What happens if this funding doesn't happen now? Okay, so it's important. We've got that, but we don't need to fund it now. We can fund it in the next funding call. No. This is what happens if you don't fund it now. This is why it's important. There is something that will fall down, will break if you don't fund me. So thinking about that idea of jeopardy is really important. So pulling this together, just to reiterate, this book is by Steven Pressfield. is really, really helpful, I think, in just taking some lessons from outside academia and thinking, how can I make my writing better? The other thing that I would do to encourage you to make your writing better is practice, practice, practice. When I was a postdoc, I hated writing, absolutely loathed it. Now I'm finding myself actually quite liking it. Now that has been a 30-year journey, but I do actually quite enjoy writing now. But I write in a way that suits me. So I grab a cup of coffee. I sit down for a Pomodoro amount of time, 25 minutes. I write. I then get up. I have a wander around. And then I come back. So thinking about all these things, treating your research as a story, outlining what's the theme of it, what's the key point you're trying to get across, who are the heroes, who are the villains, what's that absolute crystal focus, and what happens if it doesn't get funded, or why is this important? That's your conclusion in a paper. Thinking about wrapping that all together, that doesn't happen overnight. It needs practice. It needs you to read around, to work out what works well in your particular discipline for communication. So be forensic when you're reading other people's stuff and think, actually, that's really good. I'm going to remember that bit. If you're rubbish at remembering, then Post-its are always a good thought on that one. But it is about assimilating good practice. And I think learning from other areas where you have to write and you have to be good at it. So Steven Pressfield started in advertising. Probably, the ultimate persuasion, isn't it? So thinking about how you can view your research in a slightly different way that helps you write, that helps you bring your voice to the fore, that helps you sound authentic and interesting and people want to read more. That's what you're hopefully doing. Okay, I am going to just pop up my Q&A and to see if there are any questions on that point. If you are struggling with an application, I can help you with that application. Just either reply to the email that you got sent for the webinar or find me on my website and we can arrange a chat over the applications. If you are really struggling with writing, again, we could perhaps have a coaching session looking at building up those writing techniques. So I'm here to help you. I love the postdoc tribe and hopefully we can work together to make your postdoc years proactive and successful. Okay, if there are no questions, I will leave you on this Monday morning. Have a terrific week. Enjoy your coffee and I'll see you next week. Thank you.